talking to a spork.
And we're already off to a great start. Oh, don't you worry, we're going to talk about the massive implications behind this thing coming to life in just a second. But first, there's a little something else we gotta take care of. Woody gets back to Bonnie's room and not 2 seconds after he climbs out of the backpack, the toys are already chewing him out as if he committed some unforgivable sin, and Dolly, because who else would it be, is leading the charge on this front. Hey, remember earlier when you demanded that everyone needs to remain perfectly still because...
Bonnie always forgets something.
Yeah, well, I guess that doesn't mean anything anymore, since you are more than willing to immediately get to work reprimanding Woody for trying to get Bonnie in trouble and running the risk of getting himself confiscated, I guess. But what this cotton clown fails to understand is that were it not for Woody making the incredibly intelligent decision to jump into Bonnie's backpack, she never would have made Fork Face, and she never would have had the confidence she needed to make it through the day, because Wendy Koopa over here certainly wasn't going to be of any help. And once Woody brings Fork Face out of the backpack to prove that his presence in that classroom is what got Bonnie through her first day of kindergarten, not only does Dolly not apologize to Woody, not only does she herself adopt this strategy of sending a toy with Bonnie to school by the end of the movie, with absolutely no self-awareness, credit, thanks, or apologize to Woody whatsoever, but her pea-brain just immediately forgets all about him the instant Woody says the words, road trip, as if she subconsciously realizes how embarrassingly wrong she's been since the first second she was on screen and is now desperately trying to change the subject so that none of her brain-dead followers realize it. If I ever wanted to kill myself, I'd climb to the top of Dolly's ego and then jump to her IQ. Oh, and since we're on the topic of Fork Face, let's finally stop and talk about what this garbage reject's existence means for this universe. So first, some context. Woody opens up the backpack and slowly encourages Fork Face to show himself and meet all the other toys. But as of right now, he is only capable of saying one word.
Trash?
Trash, 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 trash.
And to prove his allegiance to this one word, he immediately turns around and makes a beeline for the trash can, fighting against Woody's grip as he struggles to keep him from throwing himself away. The other toys are all extremely confused by the existence of this spork, asking why he wants to go to the trash, to which Woody explains that he was made from trash, and thus he wants to go to the trash, which I don't even know where to begin with this one. Okay, first things first. Every single toy from both Andy's room and Bonnie's room is gobsmacked by the existence of this thing, utterly baffled at the idea that this arts and crafts project could ever come to life. How? How could this possibly be a new concept for them to deal with? How, in the 17 years that Andy's toys were with him, did they never, not once, ever encounter a situation where he made an arts and crafts project like Fork Face over here? Or is it that there's something special about Fork Face that brought him to life and not the other arts and crafts projects? Because now, thanks to this stupid movie, we have to tackle the rules of sentience in the Toy Story universe. And if your knee-jerk reaction to hearing me say that is something along the lines of, come on dude, it's a world where toys come to life! Toys aren't alive in our world, as far as you know. So why does Fork Face have to make sense? Then listen up and listen good while I tell you about something called internal consistency. Because yes, you are absolutely correct. This is a fictional world where toys come to life. That has been the fundamental world rule since the very first movie. But you will never hear me criticize these stories as concepts because fictional stories are allowed to take the audience into unfamiliar worlds with rules far different to our own to tell exceptionally entertaining stories. That is not what we are talking about in regards to Fork Face. We are not talking about consistency in regards to our world. We are talking about consistency in regards to their world. Or in other words, internal consistency. You cannot criticize a fictional world for the foundations of its universe. What you can do, however, is criticize a fictional world for a contradiction of the foundations of its universe. And that is what we are talking about when criticizing Fork Face. Not that it makes no sense for a toy to come to life because that's been implicit in the rules of this universe since the very beginning, but that it makes no sense for this stupid spork to have ever come to life because he is not a toy. He even explicitly says that himself.
I am not a toy. I'm a spork.
He is a bundle of pipe cleaners, popsicle sticks, and googly eyes strapped to a discarded spork. It's always been pretty simple since the beginning of the series. If you are a toy, you are sentient. Whether you're a human-like entity such as Woody, an animal-like Rex, or a vehicle-like RC. But now this movie has thrown an entirely new factor into the mix that could fundamentally destroy the world building of Toy Story as we know it. How is this spork alive? Is it that all inanimate objects are actually alive and that they just don't have the means to see the world, communicate, or navigate? Because that's horrifying to think about. What? Is it the googly eyes? If I throw googly eyes onto Bonnie's backpack, give it a name and then start playing with it, will it come to life? Is it specific to eating utensils? How far can I stretch this? Can I throw googly eyes into a bowl of spaghetti and make it come to life? Can I write my name on my car and attach googly eyes to it? What if I do it to a strand of hair, a bottle of water, a shirt, a shoe? Can I reanimate a dead animal by throwing googly eyes onto it? Can I throw googly eyes onto the ground and make the entire planet come to life? What are the limits here? How is this stupid spork alive?
At this point, you've probably already assumed that a child's imagination is what indeed gives a toy life. But in case there was any doubt about it, the Toy Story 4 trailer officially makes it canon.
Bonnie made a friend in class. No, she literally made a new friend.
Kids are essentially the gods that giveth life in the Toy Story verse.
No, shut up! Sentience in the Toy Story universe has absolutely nothing to do with a child's imagination because the toys in Al's toy barn and the aliens in the claw machine are all alive and moving about freely. They have never been played with in their lives. They were manufactured and shipped to the store for sale or to the arcade game as prizes to be won. Furthermore, this Buzz Lightyear figure was never going to be played with at all because he was only supposed to be for display, and yet he is still fully sentient. Heck, even if you just want to adhere to this movie alone, we are going to meet a pair of toys a bit later on whose entire story revolves around the idea that they have never been played with in their lives, and are desperate to find a kid of their own, and they are still very much alive. And that's not to mention the fact that Bonnie has previously played with things such as a cardboard spaceship that she's clearly using her imagination to include in her playtime adventures, yet it's still dead as a doorknob. So nice try, MatPat. You have a plethora of incredibly well-researched videos and thought-provoking topics to discuss across all 4 of your channels. I have nothing but undying respect and admiration for you after the things you've done for St. Jude as well as for the YouTube platform as a whole, and you are more than deserving of becoming the next host of Jeopardy! Which, by the way, everybody watching this should go sign his petition to help make that happen, link in description. But good lord almighty, did you drop the ball hardcore in this one. Oh, well then it must be the souls from Soul. After all, the idea behind that movie is that the souls prepare for life, and when they fill out all their personality traits, they dive down to earth ready to live by becoming somebody's soul. So that must explain the sentience. The souls can inhibit any object. And that is an incredibly creative hypothetical solution to this problem, since the Pixar Theory states that all Pixar movies exist in the same shared universe. Except for one small problem with that. The people who made this movie actively deny the existence of the Pixar Theory and make fun of people who believe in it. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, then don't take my word for it. Let's hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
This book that Mom is reading right there, you can't see the cover, but it says, Beyond Infinity, Debunking the Crazy Theory of a Shared Universe, or something like that.
Oh, don't you worry. We're going to be getting to that stupid book in the next episode. So there you have it. According to these filmmakers, the Pixar Theory isn't at all applicable here, so the sole excuse for Forkface's sentience ain't gonna fly here. Although, speaking of these unsalted pretzels, let's check back in on them and see if they have any explanation for how exactly this thing managed to come to life.
It could be because Bonnie writes her name on his feet. That could be the thing.
No, that doesn't make any sense, because aside from the fact that almost every single one of Andy's and Bonnie's toys don't have a name written on them, aside from the fact that Al's collection of toys both in his apartment and at the toy barn don't have a name on them, aside from the fact that Buzz was already alive before Andy wrote his name on his boot, and aside from the fact that under this brain-dead logic, Woody should have been killed when the cleaner painted over Andy's name, you know what else has Bonnie's name written on it? Her backpack! Yeah, and you thought that backpack comment from earlier was just a random example, didn't you? If that's all it takes is to just write your name on an inanimate object, then why isn't the backpack alive? What, because it's a backpack and not a toy? Say it. Say because it's just a backpack. I dare you. Tell me it's just a backpack and not a toy. Say that to me when we are dealing with a freaking spork held together by glue and pipe cleaners. I dare you. Try again, you clowns.
We were sitting around the storeroom going, well, what if Bonnie played with a rock? Would that rock come to life? And the answer is, who knows?
I know you don't know whether or not it should come to life, because you have absolutely no idea what you are doing with this franchise. You shattered the consistency of this universe, and all it took was for you to throw some googly eyes on a discarded eating utensil and call it alive.
I don't think we should explain it. That's a little too midichlorian for me.
I'm stunned. I'm completely shocked. Honestly, I'm just utterly taken aback by the idea that you don't think you should address these fundamental world-building questions when writing your story. It absolutely astounds me that you think these things aren't important. Truly, I'm just amazed.
I have all the questions.
And what Trixie says right there is a way for us to not answer the question. If her just going, I have a question, I've got all of them.
We all do.
Don't worry about it.
No, shut up, you stupid filmmakers! Just because you didn't care enough about Toy Story to think about how this brain-dead spork was going to impact the universe you were adding to doesn't mean you get to tell us not to think about it. Don't worry about it and don't think about it are things you say when you are fully cognizant of the fact that the story you are telling is rotten to the core and fundamentally broken, and you just desperately hope that people aren't going to realize it. Well, guess what? You may have fooled the rest of the world with this trash, but you ain't gonna fool me. Oh, and we're not even done talking about Forkface yet. There's still something we haven't addressed. He wants to go to the trash can because he was made from items Woody dug out of the trash, so he wants to go back to his place of origin? Then why don't the other toys? Why doesn't Mr. Potato Head want to go back to play school? Why doesn't Rex want to go back to the small company that was purchased in a leveraged buyout? Why doesn't Buzz want to go back to Taiwan? Heck, even if we ignore all the other toys, this excuse doesn't even work in isolation, because that's not the trash can he was born from. He was born from the trash can in the kindergarten room. That random bean means nothing to him. Also, he wants to go to the trash because he was made from trash? But he wasn't made from trash. He was made from pipe cleaners, googly eyes, popsicle sticks, art dough, and a spork. Some of those stem from the art box and one stems from some random kid's lunchbox. Why isn't his body being pulled in all sorts of directions? Actually, wait, even then it's still broken because each of those items would have been produced in a different factory that mass produces these art supplies. Why doesn't he want to go back to the factory where all these things came from? How far can I push this until it breaks? Buzz off with this garbage, you stupid movie.
Woody, aren't you being a little dramatic about all this?
Hey, remember 10 seconds ago when you were yammering on about how Woody could have been confiscated or gotten Bonnie in trouble and being incredibly dramatic about the situation? And I'm sorry, Bonnie was literally crying her eyes out earlier and was visibly distraught about going to kindergarten right in front of you. What do you mean he's being a little dramatic? What are you talking about? But remember, everyone,
Dolly knows Bonnie so well.
also, why aren't Buzz and Jessie standing up for Woody here? Have these toys not been with him for long enough to understand that when Woody talks about what's best for his kid, he knows what he's talking about? Good Lord almighty, none of this makes any sense. Who wrote this? Okay, let's finally keep going with the plot. Forkface tries to kill himself by jumping into the trash can, but Woody jumps in to save him, vowing to babysit this spork while he acclimates to Bonnie's room. And speak of the devil, Bonnie comes charging back into the room to play with Forkface some more. But she quickly realizes that the spork has been misplaced, and so Woody chucks him back up onto the bed so nothing seems amiss. Wait, why is Forkface frozen? Why does he know to freeze in the presence of a human? He thinks he belongs in the trash. He doesn't know he's a toy. He actively says,
I am not a toy. I'm a spork.
why would he know that he needs to, let alone decide that he wants to, freeze in front of Bonnie? And I swear if I see even a single comment saying, oh, well then how does Buzz know how to freeze? He doesn't think he's a toy in the first movie. Then I will smack you with a newspaper. If you unironically think that that is a valid counter-argument, then listen up, because I am so sick and tired of seeing this moronic sentiment about the first movie. Why does Buzz know to freeze in the first Toy Story movie if he believes he's an actual space ranger? Well, have a listen to this line of dialogue right here.
It looks as though I've been accepted into your culture. Your chief, Andy, inscribed his name on me.
The intended effect upon seeing this is to feel Woody's jealousy to some extent, because prior to this point, he was the only toy in the room that Andy wrote his name on. But it also gives us vital information as to how Buzz views Andy's room. Buzz believes that he's crash-landed on an uncharted planet and is simply learning to live among the toys while he works to repair his spaceship. And while it's clear that he's more than willing to request their help and supplies with the repair process, he also wants to be respectful of the culture of the planet that he thinks he's landed on, and makes an effort to respect the chain of command. But what could he possibly consider to be part of their culture? Well, the only rule that the toys absolutely must abide by is that whenever Andy comes into the play with them, they need to freeze so he isn't scarred for life, and is therefore something the toys would have told him about, and something Buzz would consider to be part of their culture. What's that? That only applies to Andy, but you still haven't explained why he freezes in front of the other humans, you say? Well, let's run through the rest of this film and see how that holds up. Buzz has no compunctions about not freezing in front of the pizza delivery guy. He doesn't even consider Woody's concern that
No, wait, Buzz! Let's get in the back! No one will see us there!
to be a problem whatsoever. When sneaking into Pizza Planet, he's moving stealthily because he believes that they need to circumvent the guards at the spaceport, not so that the humans don't see him, as evidenced by why he sprints across the aisle and dives into the rocket crane without a care in the world for who may spot him. When he's in the bag with Woody heading into Sid's house, Woody has to actively tell Buzz to freeze as Sid reaches into the bag to grab him, which is likely also an event that occurred as he was being pulled out of the rocket. And after that, the next time he has to freeze is after he realizes that he's a toy, at which point he understands that that is the reason why the toys have to freeze back in Andy's room. The only human he proactively chooses to freeze in front of before discovering the truth is Andy, and it's entirely because he believes freezing to be a part of the culture of the room. Oh, but what about when he's in his box? Why would he know to freeze then? Simple. Listen to this line from Toy Story 2.
You're in direct violation of Code 6404.5, stating all Space Rangers are to be in hypersleep until awakened by authorized personnel.
It's part of the scripted backstory that they all believe to be true, until they are awakened by authorized personnel, as in taken out of their box by a child, they are to be in hypersleep, as in frozen. Thus explaining why all the other toys in the store are free to party as they please, but none of the Buzz Lightyear toys move even a single muscle unless they're actively attacked. And to carry this out further, the delusional Buzz Lightyear doesn't freeze when he's in front of Al in his office. He takes cover because he thinks he's
An agent of Zurg if I ever saw one.
and that is the reason why he chooses to stay hidden. Not because he's a toy wanting to freeze, but because he's on a mission to stop the evil Emperor Zurg and doesn't want to be captured by one of his agents. I won't deny that the films could be clearer about these things as opposed to leaving it up to the viewer to pick up these pieces and put them together on their own, but it's undeniable that the pieces are there. But there are no pieces in Toy Story 4 in regards to Forkface. The only line of dialogue he said throughout this film is,
Trash? Trash. 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 Trash.
and even if we reference later lines of dialogue, the only thing of note that he says before he realizes he's supposed to be Bonnie's toy and needs to freeze in front of her is,
I am not a toy. I'm a spork.
you have no excuse, movie. The original trilogy made a clear effort to establish reasons why Buzz would choose to freeze in front of Andy and in his spaceship, but you've got nothing. There is absolutely no reason why this spork would ever feel the need to do this, which is essential to the stakes of the story because if Bonnie saw this spork moving and talking, she'd either be freaked out about it and scarred for life like what happened to Sid, tell her parents about what she saw, which they obviously wouldn't believe, and either lead to unwanted therapy or a permanent distrust with her parents, because it wouldn't be that Bonnie is telling a funny story that she knows is false to try to get her attention, it'd be her genuinely sharing something true that she saw that her parents do not believe. And how exactly has that worked out for other characters? Yeah, that's what I thought. Or the worst possibility of all is that she shows Forkface to her parents, they're freaked out by what they've seen, and confiscated by throwing him in the trash and erasing the core plot device of this film at best, or calling in the authorities to investigate this bizarre talking spork and potentially destroying the secret worlds of toys forever at worst. It is pivotal to this story that Forkface knows to freeze in front of Bonnie during this and all subsequent scenes, but the simple truth of the matter is that he has absolutely no reason to. This makes no goddamn sense. Who wrote this? Moving on, we transition to nighttime where we see that Woody is still stuck in the stupid bin tossing Forkface up next to Bonnie! You've been in there doing this since she got back from orientation and it took you all those hours to realize, gee, I wonder if it's a smarter idea to go up there and hold him in place so we can both get some sleep. And wait a minute, why are her parents even letting their daughter sleep with a spork in the first place? It may be a plastic spork, but you can still poke your eye out with this thing. How terrible are these parents? Good Lord almighty. Okay, so anyway, so Woody wakes up the next morning and discovers that Forkface has decided to try something new and is sleeping in the trash bin for a change. Amazing. But oh no, Magnum is on the hunt, and so Woody lets himself go limp and fall over, landing at the exact right angle to tip over the trash can and spill out Forkface perfectly, but also keep everything else inside the bin except for this one crumpled up piece of paper that barely leaves the bin. Seriously? You were that perfect. In the less than a second you had to think, you hit the exactly perfect angle you needed to free Forkface without making a mess. Buzz off, you stupid movie. Magnum walks into the room to wake up Bonnie for the road trip, and because his intelligence is about on par with his emotional awareness, he steps on Woody as he leans over Bonnie's bed. Gee, it sure would have been inconvenient if he'd taken literally one extra step forward and crushed this stupid spork immediately, thus ending the movie and leaving her daughter in a state of distress. Then again, he clearly doesn't even care if she is emotionally distraught, so whatever. Well, story-wise anyway, it would destroy the crux of the narrative because this spork is going to become the ultimate plot device for the rest of the film, and so if he were to destroy it right here, right now, this film's story would fold in on itself and end immediately. Anyway, Bonnie is excited about all the toys she's gonna bring with her on the road trip, which causes her to think about Forkface and realizes he's gone missing. And so Woody throws him back up onto the bed, which once again somehow goes completely unnoticed by both Bonnie and her dad because he just so happened to be looking in the complete opposite direction long enough for Woody to throw the spork back up. How wonderfully convenient. Then Bonnie leaps into Magnum's arms, he steps on Woody again, and then they go down to the kitchen to eat breakfast, meaning that Forkface is now super dead because Woody isn't going down there with him to stop him from jumping into the trash can, of which you would absolutely find one in the kitchen. So what in the world is going to stop him from throwing himself away the second Bonnie looks away from him like he did a minute ago? Oh, sorry, was that one of the things you don't want us thinking about? I forgot you didn't actually apply your brain when you wrote the script. So then Buzz asks if Woody needs help looking after Forkface on the road trip, and wait, where did you come from? There's no other toys on the floor. Where did you... What? Did you just teleport into the scene? Oh, don't tell me you were hiding in the closet the whole night. Don't even try to tell me that it's a normal event for these toys to spend the night sleeping in a closet. I sure do hope that's not the case, because if it was, then it would make the toys' attitude when they were stuck in the closet earlier really, really silly. Oops. Did somebody forget their own script? Moving on, he offers to help keep an eye on Forkface while they're on the road, and Woody denies Buzz's help? What? Are you kidding me? Woody doesn't want Buzz's help with Forkface? Who are these characters? These are the two who said they'd be together for infinity and beyond, and Woody isn't gonna let Buzz help when he clearly needs all the assistance he can possibly get to keep this neurotic sport from killing himself. Buzz off, you stupid movie. You have no idea who these characters are. Stop pretending like you do. Oh my god. And so begins the road trip montage with Randy Newman music playing in the background because, as the director puts so eloquently, Randy Newman music just pulls you right into the Toy Story universe. Don't think about our broken script, please. Just let yourself get distracted by Randy Newman music. And they really need you to be distracted for this montage, because if you actually stop to think about what's happening in these scenes, not only does none of this make any sense, but there is one particular shot that if you actually see it, if you see this one particular shot, it nukes the entire film. It utterly shatters this script to pieces. Not that it's not already in tatters, but you'll see what I mean. But I won't show my hand just yet. We're gonna play a little game. I will describe each scene in this montage to you, break down what's wrong with each of them without explicitly telling you which one kills the film. I want to see if you can figure out which scene it is. Go ahead, take your pick, remember it for later, and then we'll revisit this montage at the very end of the film to see if you were right. Now then, let's begin. For our first scene, there's nothing broken here that we haven't already gone over. By which I mean, there's absolutely no reason for Forkface to keep freezing every time Bonnie looks back at him. Oh, and by the way, in case you think it's a toy's immutable, uncontrollable instinct to freeze when a human looks at them, that's just straight up wrong thanks to this little scene.
So play nice.
So, yeah, Forkface freezing makes no sense. Bonnie should see Woody moving around in her peripheral vision, whatever, we've been over this. Moving on to the next scene at the gas station where Magnum is pumping the gas and Bonnie and her mom, who we'll call, Pearl, step outside, but then we come back to the RV where we see, you guessed it, Forkface trying to throw himself away. Awesome. And because Woody refused Buzz's help, he is forced to keep this little twerp from committing suicide all by himself while all the other toys just laze around doing nothing, which is proving to be quite the Herculean task. Truly a 200 IQ play there, Woody. So he finally decides, aha, he can't throw himself into a bin if there's no bin to be thrown into. Genius. And so he chucks the trash can out the rear window of the RV as they drive away from the gas station. What? Who wrote that? Who put that into the script? I don't understand how this happened. Let me run you through the logistics of what would have needed to occur in order for this event to have taken place. Woody would have needed to hold up the trash can by himself, since, remember, he denied help from Buzz and every other toy is frozen right now. Run to the back of the RV, open the window since we already know from this shot that it was sealed shut due to the reflection in the glass, wait for Magnum to stop pumping the gas, and wait for Bonnie and Pearl to come back to the RV, and then throw it out the window at the exact moment as they start driving away. And to put it simply, none of that makes any sense at all. First of all, Bonnie and Pearl really don't hear Forkface giggling like a maniac. Really? Are you both deaf? How did you not hear that? Second, it requires the use of both of Woody's arms in order to hold the trash can away from the spork. And even then, he still has to rest the trash can against the seat in front of him because he cannot support the weight of this thing all by himself. Which makes sense since he's, you know, a toy! Yet we are supposed to believe that he dragged this trash can all the way to the back of the RV. He did all the way up to the top of this couch in the back. And remember, Buzz isn't allowed to help Woody here, so none of these toys are allowed to share the load when lifting this thing up. And he has to do all this while still somehow securing the spork despite needing to use both his hands in order to hold onto the bin. This movie is full of baloney. Third, how did nobody notice the trash can? Both Magnum and Pearl would have had to pass by the bin to get back into the driver's seat and into the passenger seat, yet neither she nor Magnum or Bonnie noticed that this was missing. They didn't notice that there were still sound waves coming into the RV due to the now open window despite the door being closed. Bonnie didn't notice that Forkface had disappeared from his previous location and would therefore have to look toward the back of the RV to find him, thus noticing the trash can and the open window, especially when later in the movie we see that the family's plans are brought to a screeching halt whenever she can't find this sport for 2 seconds. This movie is full of baloney. And finally, even if we assume that Woody magically found a way to lug this bin up to the top of the table in the back, even if we assume that Woody somehow managed to secure Forkface, even if we assume that nobody noticed the open window or the missing trash can for however long it took everyone to complete their side quests, there is absolutely no way in the world Woody could have surreptitiously chucked this trash can out the back window without Magnum noticing him in the rear view mirror that would be aimed at the back of the RV! You are busted, my dude. You're done. You're gone. You are being sent to an exorcist the instant Magnum sees this and freaks the heck out over it. And if you want to make the incredibly charitable assumption that Woody would have shut this current so nobody could have seen him, then that is an even bigger change that has been made to the state of the RV, and there's absolutely no way no one would notice that either. This movie is full of baloney. No matter how you slice it, you are not getting this bin out the window. Actually, wait a minute. Even if we accepted the insane circumstances surrounding how Woody managed to get the bin out the window, why would he even want to? So long as this trash can is inside the RV, he is guaranteed to keep Forkface inside the vehicle at all times because he will have no reason to go anywhere else. Absolute worst case scenario, Forkface gets into the trash can. Okay, now all you have to do is get him out of the bin before the parents empty it at the next campground or gas station. But if there is no longer a bin in the RV to fulfill Forkface's suicidal desires, then all of a sudden he has a major incentive to try to leave the vehicle, which makes your job infinitely more difficult than it would have been if you just kept it in the RV. What are you doing? This makes no sense. And just so you know, the remainder of this plot is dependent on there not being a trash can in this RV. So don't even try to tell me this isn't a big deal. It is a major deal. Okay, next montage scene. Bonnie is shown happily playing with Woody outside Poultry Palace. In the next shot, Bonnie runs off to go eat her lunch while Forkface gels himself over seeing a trash can nearby. And so Woody races to catch up and stop him again. Are you noticing a running theme here? Because it's getting very tiring to watch. Anyway, this makes no sense. The only reason they don't see this is because they're all sitting on the same side of a table that's designed to hold 4 people. Seriously? You wouldn't even put one parent on the opposite side so you have more room to eat? There's no way you have enough room for all 3 of your food on this small little table. But of course, if they did the sensible thing and actually put someone on the other side of the table, then Woody and Forkface would have been caught immediately. But I don't even think they should have been able to get away with this as the scene is presented anyway, because there's nobody else in this shot. There's nobody in this table back here, and anybody in the parking lot would be too far away to create a noticeably auditory disturbance. So how in the world do they not hear Forkface wailing like a dying banshee right next to their table? Does anybody on this team know how sound waves work? How do they keep getting away with this? Who wrote the script? Oh my god, okay, moving on. The RV pulls up to an overlook so Bonnie can step out and take a picture of the jaw-droppingly gorgeous scenery, only to then immediately run back into the RV literally less than 3 seconds after she leaves the frame. Let's run through the laundry list of problems with this scene. First of all, the RV pulls all the way up to the wall in this shot, and then one shot later the RV is suddenly meters away from the thing, and I don't know how you screw this up. I can only assume that they realized while animating the shot that if Bonnie had actually stepped out when the RV was right next to the wall, that there would be no way for her to possibly see over without a parent coming out with her. And for some reason, they only wanted her to run outside without either of her brain-dead parents. I don't even fully buy the idea that this 5-year-old child managed to operate the camera by herself, but what I can definitively say is that there's absolutely no way she managed to position her camera at the proper angle, wait for the lens to focus, and then actually take the picture in less than 3 seconds. And why are her parents even letting her run outside by herself? You are at an overlook surrounded by people you don't know and your daughter is 5 years old. If there's even the slightest chance there might be someone malicious out there, or even just an idiotic drunk driver that haphazardly pulls up to the overlook without looking, why in the world would you not want to be out there with her to at the very least help her take a better photo, and especially be there to keep an eye on her in case something goes horribly wrong, instead of just mucking about in the front seats? And I haven't even talked about what they actually wanted you to focus on in this scene, which is Forkface. Let's assume he somehow managed to grab hold of the door despite the handle being all the way up here and nowhere near where his pipe cleaner hands are. You might assume that Bonnie was holding onto him as she ran outside and simply lost her grip as she opened the door, but no! Her hand is clearly not even remotely touching Forkface in this shot. This not only means that the spork wasn't on Bonnie's person since he was already waiting on the door trying to escape despite her constant desire to want to play with him, but that he somehow maneuvered his way across the RV and up onto the door without anybody noticing the movement and without Woody stopping him, and that Bonnie didn't see Forkface on the door when she pushed it open and didn't grab him to take him outside or to put him back on the table. What is this scene? We then see a scene where Forkface and Woody are just running around outside. How did this happen? Where are they right now? How did they get outside without anybody noticing? Why is the door open? Did the spork open it? If so, how did no one see it open? How does the spork keep getting away from Bonnie without either herself or Woody pulling him back? How does this keep happening? What is going on? Who wrote this? They then take a detour to head to a rest stop, which... okay, so they pull into the rest stop, and as Bonnie steps off the RV, it is revealed that Forkface is hiding on the backpack. And so then Woody starts running after Forkface to prevent him from throwing himself into the trash can again. And then the second he catches him, Bonnie and Pearl emerge from the rest area. But why? Why did you walk off the RV and then literally seconds later you emerge to go back to the RV? Unless you have the magic ability to snap your fingers and empty your bladder instantly. You could not have possibly gone to the bathroom and washed your hands with the amount of time that you had. So what the heck were you doing? You made a pit stop at a rest area to rest for like 5 seconds and then leave again? What was the point? How did you not hear Forkface or see him in your peripheral vision? He literally screams out.
Here I come!
How did these two not hear him? How did Magnum, who we know for sure is still in the RV since he's not with the family when they go toward the rest area or when they come back from the rest area, not see or hear Woody race at the door to catch him? How did Forky even get away from Woody in the first place? What is this montage? What is happening right now? It's just a spork trying to jump into a bin over and over again in increasingly ridiculous ways and during increasingly insane situations that these toys should never have been able to get away with in a million years. And the writers desperately want you to not think about any of this, which is why they play the Randy Newman music. So you disengage your critical thinking abilities and then just get swept away by the musical score. Although maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself on that note. So for now, I'll just say this. Keep this in mind for later, and remember which shot in that montage you think nukes the entire premise of this film. We'll see how your guess turns out by the end. Now, let's talk about what the writers are very clearly trying to allude to in regards to Forkface's actions here. Prior to this point, I have been completely ignoring the music playing in the background and focusing solely on the movie itself so you can understand how none of this makes any sense at all. But now, I want you to completely disregard the visual events taking place and listen very closely to the lyrics of this song, and then tell me what you think they're supposed to be about.
I can't let you throw yourself away. Don't you want to see the sun come up each morning? Don't you want to see the sun go down each day? Don't you want to see that little girl who loves you so? Her heart would break. You should go.
I don't know about you, but when we are dealing with a character who literally wants to throw himself away, while a song is playing in the background about how a girl who loves you's heart would break if you should go, and wanting to see the sun rise and set each day, and considering comments Randy Newman has made in interviews, the very first thought to come to my head is, oh, so they want you to think that Forkface is suicidal. The writers are very clearly trying to draw a parallel to this topic, only they aren't portraying it with any sense of emotional intelligence or respect whatsoever, which is absolutely pathetic because you work at Pixar, a studio that has never, ever been afraid to tackle incredibly serious topics such as depression, physical and mental disabilities, a merciless massacre of all except one of a father's yet to hatch eggs, as well as his wife in the opening minutes of a movie, the meaning of life itself and the meaning of death, forced gender roles and patriarchal expectations, even if said themes would have been handled significantly better if the original director hadn't been removed from the project, but that's a topic for a different day. Hell, A Bug's Life even tackled things like authoritarianism, corruption, and government's dictatorship, and this was Pixar's second movie. Second, you are working at a studio that has never had any compunctions whatsoever about dealing with monumentally serious topics in what are widely considered to be children's movies. So if you wanted to tell an emotionally mature story about suicidal thoughts, you were at the perfect animation studio to do it. But no, you didn't want to do that, because you aren't emotionally mature enough to watch Blue's Clues. You have this happy, jovial, bouncy instrumental to distract kids from both the lyrics being sung and the visual events happening on screen. And looking past how these scenes don't make any sense at all, Forkface is trying to throw himself away because he doesn't want to be a toy. He doesn't want to live in the life that he has been given and would rather die at the hands of the trash can. But this isn't handled with sincerity or maturity. It's played entirely for laughs throughout the entirety of this montage. What are you doing? What have you written here, you narcoleptic seahorse? And even if you think that I'm making an overly large deal about this and that the writers didn't intend to send that message, which is irrelevant because it might actually be a bigger insult that they wrote the scenes in the way that they did, but were too stupid to realize what it might imply. Even if you just look at it in the context of the story itself, the implementation of Forkface's character arc is a complete and utter joke to watch unfold on screen, and I can think of no better way to illustrate this than by drawing the comparison to Buzz Lightyear's journey in the first movie, or more specifically, the scene where he discovers that he is actually a toy. Buzz has spent the entire movie up until this point believing that he's meant for something greater in his life. He is a space ranger. He's the one who's going to save the galaxy from the evil Emperor Zurg, until he sees a commercial for a Buzz Lightyear action figure, perfectly replicating every action he's taken throughout the film as if he were just one of a million buzzes on an assembly line, even going so far as to explicitly refer to him as nothing more than a toy, a flightless toy, no less. He stares in silence and disbelief as he watches his entire world come crumbling down around him, and then all he can do is walk away. He has shut out his surroundings. He's stopped thinking about Woody, about Sid, about Andy, about everything. It's all his brain can do to work overtime to try in desperation to process the bombshell that has just been dropped onto him, that everything he ever knew was a lie. There is no Gamma Quadrant of Sector 4. There is no Universe Protection Unit of the Space Ranger Corps. There is no Galactic Alliance. And there is no evil Emperor Zurg. He doesn't have a real laser cannon. He doesn't have a communicator linked to Star Command. And he can't fly. He's forced to stand longingly at the railing of the stairs, looking out the window as he sees birds flying through the sky, doing the thing that he always thought he could but has now realized will forever be beyond his reach. But no. Can't be true. He refuses to believe it. He won't accept the slanderous lies he's seen on the screen, so he scales the railing with newfound determination, ready to prove to the world once and for all that he can fly if he wants to. He deploys his wings, takes in one last breath of confidence, staring towards the window with the same resolve and conviction when he last stood atop Andy's bedpost, ready to soar like a bird in the sky, and declares that he's ready to fly
To infinity and beyond.
only to feel that mountain of determination suddenly drain entirely from his face as he falls from grace, his last spark of hope growing further and further away, finally crashing down on the stairs, tumbling to the floor below, and upon recovering from the shock of the fall, he looks up to see that his arm has been entirely dislocated, a piece of him ripped from his body from the impact. But there's no torn limbs, no blood, no anything that you'd see in a normal human. All he sees is a mechanical limb, designed in a factory to be seamlessly attached, and reality finally sinks in as he accepts that he's nothing more than a toy, and that he will go sailing no more. And this results in Buzz descending into an identity crisis, where he no longer realizes what the point of being alive even is anymore, adamantly declaring that he can't help anyone, that there's no difference between him being at Andy's house or Sid's house because he's just a stupid little insignificant toy, until Woody speaks from his heart about the joys you can bring to the people around you even if you are just an insignificant toy, and he sees Woody slumped over, all the energy drained from his face thinking about the inevitability of their fate at the hands of Sid, that he may never get the chance to see Andy ever again so long as they're trapped here, and that thought has completely wrecked him. It's not until this happens that he understands the importance of toys in the world, realizing the power of the two-way relationship that they have with their owners and how they need each other more than anything. Seeing his friend with whom he's bonded over the course of their adventure depressed and dejected is the wake-up call he needs to finally snap him back to reality, giving him the confidence boost he needs to triumphantly declare that there's a kid over in that house who needs them. And so the two work together to escape Sid's house, battle the demonic Scud, catch up to Andy's moving van, and soar off as a team.
To infinity and beyond!
And even if you extract the contents of these scenes from the movie itself, there's something here that every audience member can take away from Buzz's journey. Because similar to the way that Buzz is just a toy, we're all just people. The world doesn't revolve around any of us individually. We're all just one small cog in a massive machine doing our part in the world. None of us are particularly special in that regard on a massive scale, but that doesn't make us any less special to the people around us. It doesn't mean life is meaningless just because you're one out of almost 8 billion people on the planet. You can make a difference in the lives of the people around you. You can brighten their days with the simplest of gestures. Even just the fact that you exist at all can be enough to lift someone's spirits if they see you, and you don't have to be a space ranger to do it. All you have to be is who you are. It's a beautiful message conceptually with phenomenal narrative execution, and something Pixar tackled and subsequently knocked out of the ballpark in their very first movie that has remained a timeless story almost 3 decades later. Then, on the other end of the spectrum, we have Forkface from Toy Story 4, who wobbles his way through the scenes with jovial music assaulting your eardrums, constantly trying to throw himself away without even the slightest amount of self-awareness of what is being implied here, and you play it for laughs. You play it off as a fun, high-octane montage. You want the audience to cackle uncontrollably at this concept. You play it off as such a funny thing that this spork doesn't want to be a toy so badly that he wants to keep throwing himself into a trash can. Hey, remember what happens to toys that get thrown away? Why doesn't Woody bring this up? Why doesn't he say, hey, Forkface, I know you think the trash is warm, but I don't think you quite realize how warm it's gonna get pretty soon, and my friends and I know about that firsthand, you quintessential clown. And as if all this wasn't bad enough, they don't even give his character a proper resolution to this identity crisis. They introduce him, have him try to kill himself for the 2-minute duration of a Randy Newman song, and then 2 scenes later his existential crisis concludes and he fully accepts that he's a toy who needs to be there for Bonnie without any resistance whatsoever. It's absolutely pathetic, and these writers have absolutely no respect for the subject matter they are either intentionally or accidentally trying to portray on screen, and they should be ashamed of themselves for being so irresponsible with this. But perhaps I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, so let's just get on with the plot, shall we? One One montage later, it's nighttime, and we're in the middle of nowhere as Bonnie starts to fall asleep while still firmly holding onto Forky so he can't escape her grasp. Woody is keeping a close eye on him as always, but is clearly struggling to keep himself awake. Buzz notices his narcolepsy and decides it's finally time for him to do something about it. He did bugger all throughout the earlier montage, but now all of a sudden he wants to re-offer his help to Woody. Awesome. He then does this weird rolling thing in order to get over to Woody, and I don't... Why? Why did you need to do this? Why didn't you just walk over to him like a normal person? It's not any less conspicuous to randomly roll around like Sonic. In fact, it might actually be more conspicuous because you're guaranteed to make a lot of unnecessary noise by doing this instead of just stealthily walking over to him. What are you doing? Wait. How do the parents not hear you jibber-jabbering it up anyway? You can clearly hear the radio isn't on right now. Nobody else in this RV is talking. Even if you assume the passenger is asleep right now, the driver has to be awake because we are currently driving down the highway. How does nobody hear you two talking? This wasn't a thing in the original trilogy. The only time toys talked in the vicinity of humans was when they were deliberately trying to, or if they were asleep, or if they were on the phone so there was a louder source of audio to distract them. This RV is dead silent right now. Unless this dad has a spatial awareness of a pigeon. How does he not hear you two?
We're always kind of pushing that line of how much you can get away with the toys talking when humans are around. So we always had to kind of dial up and down the volume to make sure that it seemed the humans would not notice whatever the activity was going on while the scene was playing out with the toys.
Yeah, that's why we purposefully, you don't see the parents in the shots at all. We purposefully shot it this way so you don't see the backs of their heads.
What? What did I just listen to? Dialing up and down the volume levels. What? The RV is literally dead silent. There's nobody else talking in the vehicle. There are no other cars on the road. The radio is turned off. The GPS isn't giving directions. It doesn't matter how quiet you try to make them. There is no conflicting audio to compete against. There is no reason why they should go unnoticed here. And as for the whole not showing the parents thing, really? Do you understand the concept of object permanence? Because it's either that you don't understand it or you don't think that the audience understands it. And either of those explanations is equally pathetic. You're more than welcome to take your pick. Just because you don't show the parents in the shot doesn't mean they don't exist anymore. That's not how this works, you pieces of burnt toast. Who wrote this? Also, did you people forget that Buzz glows in the dark? He had all day to soak up energy so he could radiate visible light when night falls. Oh, please don't tell me you forgot that. Don't give me yet another reason to assume that you lack even the most basic understanding of this franchise, or, worse yet, that you deliberately chose to ignore the fact that he glows in the dark because you knew that there was no way the driver could miss a ball of light rolling around the RV in the rearview mirror. Jesus Christ, these people. So then Woody has a line and it's,
I know you weren't around when Andy was little, but I don't remember it being this hard.
I genuinely have absolutely no idea what he's trying to say here. Are you trying to say that being a toy was never this hard? Because I don't know if you remember your life up until this point, but these past few movies have been ridiculously hard for you to go through. You were almost dismembered and made into a freaky abomination. You were almost eaten by a demon dog. You had to navigate roadway traffic and were nearly run over many times in the process. You were about to be run over by an airplane. You had to break out of the most heavily guarded daycare in the world. And let's not forget, you were almost shredded to pieces and then subsequently burned alive. What do you mean you don't remember it being this hard? You're trying to keep a spork out of a bin and that sent you into a mental spiral, but all this is totally average everyday toy stuff? Okay then. Or are you saying that trying to keep your kid happy when they were super young has never been this hard? Because if that's the case, then all I have to say is no dip, airlock. No, I did not misspeak. Obviously keeping Bonnie happy is harder than keeping Andy happy because Andy's favorite toy wasn't suicidal! I don't understand this line. It doesn't make any sense no matter how you look at it. So then Buzz generously offers to help Woody again by suggesting that he be the one to keep an eye on Forky for the night while Woody gets some sleep. And for just a moment, I remember that I am watching the dynamic duo from the original trilogy who relied on each other through thick and thin, only for Woody to then say, seconds later,
No, I need to do this.
What? What are you talking about? You turning down Buzz's help again? You don't want to rely on Buzz for help. After surviving Sid's house, a demon dog, Al McWiggins, the prospector, the airport, the insanity of the daycare, Lotso, the dump, a monstrous lizard, Ron the eBay expert, Aunt Buzz, and the cleric, you don't trust him to look after Forkface. After everything you two have been through together. Are you kidding me? Oh, is it because...
That little voice inside me would never leave me alone if I gave up.
Because if that's the case, then good Lord Almighty, are you delusional? This implies that you would only feel comfortable if you were the one to look after Forkface, meaning that you wouldn't trust anyone else, including Buzz Lightyear, to do that job, which is absolutely ludicrous. You two will be together for infinity and beyond. If you can't trust him to watch a spork, then there's something seriously wrong with you. But this absolutely pales in comparison to the next set of verbal diarrhea that we're about to be forced to listen to.
Who do you think it is? Who? The voice inside of you. Who do you think it is?
Okay, so, Cooley, this is a genuine response from me. Kindly you. Buzz Lightyear is not a moron. He is by no means a stupid character. Stop portraying him as some airheaded buffoon. I better not see any more of this garbage later in this film, I swear to God. Buzz knows what a conscience is. He has made intelligent decisions before throughout every single installment in this franchise. There is no way in the world he wouldn't have any idea what a person's inner voice is, nor would he be stupid enough to interpret this concept as your voice box. Cooley, listen to me, you absolute clownfish. Buzz has used his buttons before. He knows what they do. Remember that whole diatribe that I gave earlier about how masterfully that "I will go sailing no more" scene is crafted? Yeah, well, one of the things that happens in that scene is that Buzz hears the toy in the commercial say a pre-recorded voice line, and then he pushes one of the buttons on his chest himself to confirm his suspicions. The first thing Bonnie did when she got him in Toy Story 3 was push the buttons on his chest, on top of every other instance in this series where those buttons have been pressed. He knows what these things do. He would never, in a million years, interpret a conscience as the voice box inside of him. That is so far beyond ridiculous, it's actually insulting to think about. But as if that wasn't bad enough, to test out this little hypothesis, Buzz pushes one of the buttons on his chest. Why in the holy hell would he do that? You two are sitting in an RV that is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The fact that the parents don't hear you talking right now is already an absolute miracle. Why would you try to press your luck any further and push one of the buttons on your chest when there is literally no reason to? But the stupidity doesn't even stop there because the parents don't hear Buzz. They don't react at all. They don't turn around to see what happened. They don't say, "Hey, what was that?" They don't have any reaction to this deafening sound effect that should be assaulting their eardrums. Which is even more baffling when later in the movie, these very same parents get annoyed by Buzz talking too much, and Magnum sends Pearl to try to shut him up. None of the other toys wake up either. What is happening right now? You can't explain this garbage away with, "Oh, well, we just dialed up and down the volume here." No! Listen to how loud this is.
It's a secret mission in a charted race. Let's go.
Oh, but wait, it gets worse! Because it is revealed that Forkface has slipped out of Bonnie's grasp, and in the literal 5 seconds between Woody guarding Forkface and now, when he wasn't paying attention, he somehow wobbled his way to the back of the RV and climbed all the way up onto the seat? How did that happen? How did he jump that high? How did he get that far that quickly? How did Woody not see this in his peripheral vision? How is he even holding on to this seat when he has pipe cleaners as arms? Then he starts yammering on about how he's a toy with absolutely no compunctions whatsoever about keeping quiet, but the parents still don't hear him. Are we sure they're actually alive up there? Is it possible we're in the Cars universe and the RV is driving itself? Because I don't see any other way for these people to not hear all this insanity going on unless they're literally deaf. Oh wait, I forgot. These people have debunked the Pixar Theory with their commentary, so that's not happening. Speaking of which, got anything insightful to say for this scene?
The idea was at the beginning of the movie, it kind of implied he was lonely because Bo Peep wasn't around.
No, shut up! He has his friends from Andy's room. He has the toys he got along nicely with from Bonnie's room. He has Bullseye. He has Jessie. He has Buzz Lightyear, the toy he promised to be with for infinity and beyond. What do you mean he's lonely without Bo Peep? He was just fine in Toy Story 3 without her. He may have had a moment of saddened reflection, but that doesn't mean he hadn't moved on. He was doing just fine. Get out of here with this insane character motivation you keep pasting onto Woody, you stupid movie. Also, hold on, you left the window open? You didn't close it after you tossed the bin out earlier? The parents never closed this thing? Really? Are you kidding me? And it's only because of all those things that Forkface is able to jump out the window and get swept away, causing Woody to have a panic attack. Hey Woody, remember earlier when you got rid of the trash can? Yeah, well if you never did that and kept it in the RV, guess what? Forkface would have never jumped out the window because he would have still had a trash can inside the vehicle to reside in safely, and the film would have stopped immediately. Woody is not this stupid. He would never have done this in the original trilogy. Why do you keep writing all the old characters with half the IQ that they used to have? Alright, so Woody jumps out the window to go on a rescue mission to retrieve the new favorite toy that got flung out previously. And after getting to his feet, Woody starts calling out Forkface's name to try to find where he is, but that doesn't make any sense because he doesn't want to be found. He doesn't want to go back to the RV, so why would he bother responding to Woody's call-outs? There is literally no chance in the world Woody could possibly find Forkface in the vast wilderness. He finds him after about 5 seconds because he got stuck in the dirt. Awesome. Of all the angles this sport could have landed at after cartwheeling through the air, he just so happened to land at the perfect angle at the perfect spot on the ground for his head to get stuck in the dirt. Because if he didn't land at that exact angle so he'd be unable to move anywhere, there is absolutely no chance that Woody would have ever found him. Quality writing here, folks. And so the journey back to the RV begins proper as Woody begrudgingly drags Forkface's sorry sticks back to Bonnie while he begs Woody to carry him, to which he says nah. His vocabulary has apparently significantly advanced beyond just the word trash since the last time we saw him, because now he's fully capable of engaging in a detailed conversation with Woody about why he has to be a toy and how Bonnie loves him and he needs to be there in order to help her create lifelong happy memories. And then, and I need you to listen to me very carefully for this one, instead of Woody telling Forkface that he needs to be there for Bonnie when she needs him, he says that he needs to be there for Andy, which doesn't make any sense at all because aside from the fact that he has never, not once, ever made that mistake in this film, and aside from the fact that he has never, not once, ever made this mistake in any form of Toy Story media taking place between Toy Story 3 and 4, literally seconds ago you said,
Doing it for Bonnie. Doing this for Bonnie. Doing it for Bonnie.
You have continually said Bonnie's name throughout this conversation with absolutely no trouble or hesitation, yet magically now you've fallen for the most embarrassingly stupid Freudian slip of your life? Are you kidding me? How did that happen? And don't even try to say, oh, come on, it's just a slip of the tongue, what's the big deal? Because, and you may not believe me when I say this, the fact that Woody has accidentally said the name Andy instead of Bonnie in this moment is going to define the climax of this film. No, I am not lying, I am not kidding. Please believe me here. The climax, and in turn, the resolution of this film is mechanically incapable of occurring in the manner that it does if Woody doesn't make a slip of the tongue in this moment, and the fact that he does make it is absolutely absurd. So please remember this for later. Then Forkface asks who Andy is, and Woody starts to explain his history with him, essentially recapping the events of the original trilogy to this stupid spork, and thus we get this stupid dialogue.
So he thought Andy's room was a planet? Wow, that is messed up.
Wasn't Buzz so stupid in the first movie for thinking he was a space ranger? I swear to God, don't you dare forget this dialogue. We will be coming back to this stupid scene later. Oh wait, you didn't think we were done hearing moronic dialogue in the scene yet, did you? Well...
Then somehow you find yourself, after all those years, sitting in a closet, just feeling
Useless?
Yeah,
Your purpose fulfilled?
exactly.
Oh my God, shut up, stop talking, can with this garbage. You were not sitting in a closet feeling useless. The stupid clock explicitly said
That's the third time you haven't been picked this week.
that is 3 out of 7 days in a week when you weren't being played with, compared against the plethora of instances we've already seen Bonnie play with you. Oh no, whatever will you do with yourself. Also, to imply that he's just been sitting around the closet not doing anything is completely disingenuous because they already established at the beginning of the movie that the only reason they were all in the closet was because
When Mom quickly cleans the bedroom like that, expect to be put in the closet.
Bonnie played with you for years between Toy Story 3 and 4. Hell, she played with you in this movie both during the opening montage and in the road trip montage. What are you talking about? You aren't making any sense. You are not useless. Your purpose has not been fulfilled. You were literally helping Bonnie create happy memories as of a few hours ago. Get out of here with this garbage. Also, remember the ending of Toy Story 3? Remember how hopeful and optimistic it was? Remember how it was portrayed as a happy event that Woody was being passed on to Bonnie and Andy had grown up? Yeah, well, nah, actually that ending was the big bad. It was all sad and depressing and not optimistic in the slightest. We need a new ending for this series, apparently, because the people who wrote this stupid movie actively hated the... Well, perhaps I'm getting a little ahead of myself again. Moving on, Forkface calls Woody trash, and in response he asks him why he loves the trash so much, which is stupid because he already explained this one scene ago.
I was made for soup, salad, maybe chili, and then the trash.
Did you already forget that? Why are you asking him about why he's obsessed with trash when we already went over this earlier? Anyway, Woody says that Forkface is Bonnie's trash, and just like that, his identity crisis is over. Yup, it's that easy. Woody just had to call him trash, and suddenly he understands that Bonnie loves him and needs him and misses him dearly, and thus he needs to get back to her immediately. It has quite literally been 10 minutes of screen time between Forkface's introduction and the resolution of his existential crisis, when it took Buzz almost the entire movie to understand that he was a toy, and even longer than that to actually come to terms with his identity. This is absolutely pathetic writing. Who approved this abomination of a script? Whatever, moving on. They conclude their conversation and start running off down the highway to catch up with Bonnie, and by the time they get to the town the RV is parked in, it looks like barely any time has passed at all, judging by the lighting. The sun is basically just as ready to rise now as it was when they were still on the highway. Look how far away they are. Do you understand how long it would take toys to travel this distance? According to the GPS, they were 5.32 miles away from their next stop when Woody jumped out the window. It would take a normal, healthy human at least 2 hours to travel that distance on foot. These two toys would have been on the road for way longer than that, and yet they seemingly just teleport into the town because consistency is not something the script is very good at. I don't know if you've noticed that throughout this analysis so far, but you better hold on real tight, because we are about to get one of the most contrived and illogical pieces of writing I have ever seen in any movie ever. So Woody and Forkface start running off to the RV park in the distance, but Woody suddenly stops dead in his tracks because he notices something on the ground. And the camera pans out to reveal a pattern of lights projected onto the road, which Woody recognizes as something he's seen before, thus causing him to turn around and look up to reveal Bo Peep's lamp just chilling in the window of this antique store. Which is just... it's... okay. So aside from the fact that out of every store in the entire world, Bo Peep just happened to end up at the one Woody stumbled into. Aside from the fact that of all the places in the country Bonnie's parents could have taken her to on their road trip, they just so happened to take her to an RV park that's right next to this store. Aside from the fact that it doesn't make any sense at all for these lights to be projected downward towards the road given how this lamp is shown to us. Aside from the fact that there's no way these lights would catch your attention when you should be laser focus on getting Forkface back to Bonnie in time and you wouldn't think anything is out of place from this angle. And aside from the fact that even if you did notice the lights, there's no way you'd connect the dots that these are Bo Peep's lamplights when the only way you could even have a remote chance of making the connection is from this angle and Woody would only be able to see it from this angle. You don't even know for sure that that is your Bo Peep since there's no way she was the only living version of that lamp set. That is insanity. That is so far beyond the realm of contrived nonsense. But hey, don't take my word for it, because for as much as I could not believe my ears when I first heard this commentary track, our favorite director and producer have some very enlightening things to say during this scene.
It actually doesn't make any sense at all why those dappled lights are being projected onto the ground. It doesn't, there's nothing that shows that that should be happening, but you just kind of buy it. I like pointing out how our movie doesn't work.
If you really break it down, none of this makes any sense.
No, you did not mishear that. No, I did not edit that clip. That was the director of Toy Story 4, openly, candidly, unironically admitting that his movie doesn't make any sense and it does not work. I just, do you even need me anymore? Do you even need me to point out how this movie is broken when the director has already confessed to it in his own commentary track? I suppose I do, because somebody out there is going to employ Death of the Author and completely disregard what they said in a desperate attempt to salvage this dying cancer patient of a film. So let's keep kicking on with the plot. Upon noticing Bo Peep's lamp, Woody decides to completely ignore Bonnie in his quest to return Forkface to Bonnie, and instead jump through the mail slot with him to investigate the antique store in search of Bo Peep. Woody, what are you doing? You are at an RV park next to a carnival that you are going to be staying at for at least a day. You can return to this antique store to look for Bo Peep anytime, but you have no idea what's waiting for you in there right now. Anything can happen to unravel your plans to return Forkface safely to Bonnie. Get him back now, return to the antique shop later. This is not complicated. And besides, Woody literally jumped out of an RV, barreling down the highway at top speed to rescue Forkface, and now all of a sudden you're gonna completely abandon your quest? Remember the last scene when you were chewing Forkface out for not wanting to go back to Bonnie and literally dragging him along with you to get back? What is happening in the script? Moving on, Woody and Forkface start aimlessly wandering around the antique store calling out Bo's name in the hopes that she'll be in the store, and after a few minutes, at best, they promptly give up, but not before Forkface delights our ears with this drivel. So then they decide to abandon the Bo Peep side quest and return to the main mission of returning Forkface to Bonnie, which should have been what you did in the first place. But oh no! A pram suddenly appears and begins to round the corner headed toward our heroes, and so Woody hurries to hide himself and Forkface away. But of all the objects in this shot that he could have used as a hiding spot, he chooses the slightly translucent vase, making it very easy for whoever's driving that pram to spot them even if they're just casually glancing in their direction. Awesome. Glad to see your intelligence demonstrated in the first 3 movies is still intact for this one. Awesome. You love to see it. The pram walks by the location and then Forkface's stupid, bendy, glitter-ridden, sporked-up mouth says, "Is that Bo?" Because if this spork were any slower, he'd need to be watered once a week. And so their cover is blown, and then they... As if this film wasn't already disturbing enough, we had to add creepy ventriloquist dolls into the mix. Because why not? Also, the dummy spots Woody immediately because this face is translucent. Yeah, maybe you should have picked literally any other object to hide behind, you idiots. Yes, Forkface shouldn't have opened his stupid mouth, but it also wouldn't have mattered if Woody hadn't picked the single worst hiding spot since Veruca from Danganronpa 3. So now, left with no choice, the two have to step out of cover and pray that appearances truly can be deceiving, but we don't really get to know him all that much for the time being because it's now time to be introduced to our villain of the movie. She is honestly one of the most horrifically evil characters we have ever crossed paths with in the Toy Story universe, and that is really saying something. But don't worry, she'll get a section of this analysis dedicated entirely to her in a few episodes from now. For now, let's keep moving on with the plot. The two creepy demons introduce themselves and announce their names to Woody and Forkface, but I don't care because I'm going to be calling them Annabelle and Chucky regardless. Woody tells Annabelle that Forkface is the creation of their kid, which surprises her as apparently
toys around here don't have kids.
Leading her to ask if they're lost, to which they say no, but that they are looking for Bo, who is a lost toy, which, no? She's not? You were a lost toy in the first movie. Lotso was a lost toy in the third movie. Bo Peep was consciously donated away after Molly outgrew her, and the Disney Plus short Lamp Life makes it clear that she kept being consciously donated throughout each stop of her journey. And we're going to come back to this short a little bit later. She's not lost, she just belongs to a different owner now. Whatever, while Woody is talking about Bo, the camera zooms in on the shiny plate behind him, which is acting as a mirror, thus allowing Annabelle to see that Woody has a pull string. And as a result of noticing this, she realizes that she really needs to get Woody into her pram before he leaves. And so she tells him that she knows exactly where Bo Peep is, even though that's obviously a lie. And so Chucky chucks the toys into Annabelle's pram and they continue on their quest to find Bo Peep. Really? You're playing the music from The Shining? Could you be any more on the nose than this? Why not throw some stock horror sound effects in there while you're at it? Maybe a Ouija board? How about we run up the stairs instead of running out the front door? And as the final nail in the coffin, why don't we bring home a possessed toy? Oh wait, you already took care of that one. What is the script? What am I watching? Is this still a Toy Story movie? Because I'm really not so sure anymore. Annabelle asks Woody when he was made and he answers by saying he was made in the late 50s, which I'm pretty sure is the first time in this film the writers actually successfully nailed a piece of continuity. Well, I guess except for the fact that the toys are still with Bonnie at the start of the film, so that's two pieces of continuity nailed, I guess. But hey, even a broken clock is right twice a day. It turns out that Annabelle was also made in the late 50s. What a coinky-dink! She compliments Woody on how he's in such great condition, to which he says,
well, I try to stay active.
Which is just, what? Remember 5 minutes ago when you were whining to Forkface about how all you do is sit in the closet all day and feel useless? What happened to that sob story? Look, the fact that he said that doesn't make any sense given the information the film has provided us, but if Woody thinks that's true, for some stupid reason, then how exactly does he think he's staying active while simultaneously believing that he's just sitting in the closet feeling useless? Was anybody working on continuity in the script? Or did you just stitch the scene together in the hopes that nobody would notice that?
None of this makes any sense.
Oh yeah, we'll be coming back to this quote as we progress through this story. Thank you, you defective mushrooms, for candidly admitting how broken your script is. It's so kind of you to make my job all that much easier. Anyway, if you haven't figured out by now, based on Annabelle's line of questioning and the consistent emphasis being placed on Woody's pull string, she's trying to see if their internal mechanisms are compatible because she wants to steal his voice box and use it for herself because hers is broken. And I'm sorry, but this makes no sense at all. Even if we completely disregard the physical process that they have to go through to successfully extract a toy's voice box, which is nowhere near as simple as this film wants you to think it is. Why would Woody's voice box be in any way compatible with a completely different toy? You might be able to stretch it such that Woody and Jessie share the same voice box since they were made as part of the same toy line, but Woody is a cowboy rag doll. Annabelle is more akin to something like a Raggedy Ann doll. It doesn't make any sense for these two to have inner workings so similar that swapping parts would go off without a hitch. But hey, don't take my word for it, take theirs!
Yeah, for people to believe that her voice box could be fixed by Woody's voice box, we had to simplify that in a way where it wasn't too much of a leap for people to try to think through how that might work.
Yeah, they had to completely remove all the nuance surrounding the construction of a toy and pretend like this process would be as simplistic as straightforward as swapping around potato head parts. Well, sorry movie, but your deceptive garbage isn't gonna fool me. This doesn't make any sense. Your script is full of baloney. So then Woody realizes that his moronic plan to try to find Bo has got himself trapped in yet another situation where he's in danger of being horribly mutilated, but it's too late because 3 more Chucky dolls magically teleport into the scene. Because that's what this movie needed. More creepy dolls. Awesome. But just as Woody's about to meet his violent end, the owner of the antique store just so happens to walk through the doors along with her daughter and granddaughter, thus causing Annabelle to be distracted long enough for Woody to grab Forkface and jump out of the pram to escape. This is all so tiring. This entire script is running entirely on luck and contrivance. How lucky that Forkface just so happened to get his head stuck in the ground when he could have landed at any angle. How lucky that Woody happened to stumble into him in the vast wilderness when he could have landed anywhere. How lucky that on their way back to Bonnie, they just so happened to end up in front of the one store in the world that currently has Bo Peep. How lucky that Woody happened to bump into Annabelle on their way out of the shop, and how freaking lucky that literal seconds before Woody was about to be torn to shreds for his voice box, the one girl in the world that Annabelle has a crush on just so happened to walk through the doors. Also, what is this positioning for the dummies? Why are you all crowding around the back of the pram? Why don't you both move slightly forward to block the side to make it as hard as possible for Woody to escape so that he doesn't just... Exactly! Oh my god, I can't take this trash anymore. It's literally a bright sunny day outside, and for some reason this girl decided that she wanted to spend her day inside the stupid antique store. Wait, it's a bright sunny day outside? Wait, what? When did that that happen? 2 minutes ago, the sun was just getting ready to rise, and now all of a sudden it's mid-morning? What? Do you people know how time works? Did the Earth take steroids between scenes and it started spinning around faster? Did you send Superman to fly around the planet at superluminal speeds? What just happened?
You may notice there's a huge time jump here. You go from 4 in the morning to now it's 8 o'clock in the morning. But we think that maybe they were searching for...
I don't think people would have noticed that unless you called it out, Josh.
Shoot. Well, movie magic.
Stop. That was too much brain cancer per second. Okay, first of all, these hacks are fully aware of the time jump and didn't do diddly squat about it. Why not just have them arrive when the sun was up? It would actually make this whole situation a lot more believable given the sheer amount of distance they had to travel if it took them longer than it did to make the journey. A lot longer, in fact. Why would you not just have them arrive then? Oh, right, because then there's even less of a reason for Woody to notice the reflection of Bo's light because he wouldn't be able to see them on the ground when it's bright and sunny out. Almost like you wrote yourselves into a corner, only instead of doing the sensible thing and going back to try to fix your story, you force the sun to be just about rising so Woody can see the lights in this scene, and then force the clock to randomly jump ahead 4 hours so you can have this little girl come waltzing in when the shop opens at this exact moment. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too, and you prayed no one would notice you take a bite. Well, guess what? We did notice, and your trickery didn't work. Second, maybe they were searching around for a while? No, that doesn't work! The lighting in this store is very noticeably altered when the sun rises, and it was 100% consistent until this one specific shot. You might have been able to get away with that excuse had you shown the store slowly get brighter the longer they kept searching, but you didn't. It's still just as dark here as it was from when they entered the store until it magically switches for this shot. But finally, and most importantly...
I don't think people would have noticed that unless you called it out, Josh.
Shoot. Well, movie magic.
No, shut up. Can it right now. Stop it with this monumentally stupid idea that people don't notice these things. I'm sorry that you think your audience is so brain dead that they don't notice things so blatantly obvious like the time of day magically changing from dark as your soul to bright as Susato, but I hate to break it to you, the audience isn't this stupid. I know you think that. You made that crystal clear when you admitted that.
None of this makes any sense.
And didn't make an effort to fix it because you just assumed no one would notice any of this stuff, and just try to explain it away by saying, movie magic! Or in other words, you screwed the pooch big time and now you're trying to compensate. Buzz off, you stupid movie. The director and producer of this film just admitted that they don't think you're perceptive enough to notice these glaring issues. I'm not gonna stand for this garbage, and you shouldn't either. And so the chase begins after a solid 3 seconds of Animal not doing anything to order the Chucky dolls to chase after him. But oh no, Woody gets his boot stuck between the keys of a typewriter, but thankfully he managed to pull both his boot free and, upon being launched backward, have his boot land on Forkface's head at the exact angle it needed to send them both falling between the aisles. How lucky! And so they continue running away, but somehow every single Chucky doll forces their way down this tiny, cramped aisle in pursuit of them. I don't know how in the world they managed to squeeze their massive bodies through, but fine, whatever, moving on. Woody topples over the stack and loses his grip on Forkface, but he quickly regains it only to discover that he somehow slipped out of his arms? What? How did that happen? It's not like the arms untangled themselves from the body, it's still perfectly intact. Woody would have had to literally slide the arms up his body and over his head for this to work, but that doesn't make any sense. How did his mouth and eyes not fall off with how flimsy they were demonstrated to be earlier when no one was even touching them? How did this even happen when he only had a hold of one end of his arms? With what they show us, Woody grabbed Forkface's left arm and then kept running. This should have just yanked the spork along with Woody and he would have been dragged behind him. How did this happen? Oh, I know, because they cheat! They cheat with how these shots are presented to the audience. It happens lightning fast because they clearly don't want you to notice it, but watch this scene in slow motion. Woody grabs his arm here, and his entire body is swept up along with Woody, which is exactly what would happen, but then they cut to the very next shot, hoping you didn't actually notice what happened here, and then magically his arms have slid off. This will not be the last time this film cheats with the presentation of its shots to try to convince you that something makes sense when it just straight up doesn't, so please keep this trickery in mind for later. So the dolls grab hold of the arms and pull him away from Woody, causing him to trip and leaving him seconds away from being grabbed by the dolls. So what does he do? Well, he notices the little girl from earlier, and then he...
I'd like to join your posse, boys, but first I'm gonna sing a little song.
What? How did that work? It makes sense that the girl would instinctively turn toward a strange noise she heard, but the dolls just disappear into thin air after he does this. Why? Where did they go? Because it looks like they just teleported out of the scene. They were here 1 second and then gone the next. Where in this room did they disappear to? How did they all run away without the girl noticing them? And why would they even stop chasing Woody? If they can teleport away from the scene this quickly, then why didn't they just grab Woody when he was right in front of them and then take him with them before he disappeared? None of this makes any sense. What is happening in the script? Who wrote this? Anyway, the little girl immediately falls in love with Woody and asks her grandma politely if she can take him home, and she says yes despite her mom's reluctance, and I feel like I've been in this exact situation in my life way too many times to count. So by process of elimination, we shall crown the grandma as the best character, since there's no way in the world you're gonna get me to care about your new piles of garbage that you call characters when you're systematically murdering all the old ones. But then, Perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself again. So the girl takes Woody home, and the Chucky doll reminds the audience that he's evil by creepily peeking his demented head up over the window to allow Woody to see that they still have fork face. Awesome. And that's gonna be our stopping point for today. A bit shorter than the first episode, yes, but we are about to come across 3 major problems with this movie that are going to take a lot of time to break down, not to mention the fact that we are about to finally get a proper taste of Buzz's assassination. So trust me when I say that it's better to call things off now while we're still in the calm before the storm. But rest assured, I'll be back next weekend to continue my quest to tear this film to pieces. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope to see you all soon for the next episode of How Toy Story 4 Destroyed Everything. Goodbye!